y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to a review. We are going to be reviewing the Glamierre Pigments. I am still calling this a 3 looks, 1 palette. I don't know what I'm going to do for the thumbnail because that sounds weird. Maybe I'll say 3 looks, 1 collection because you can buy 10 of these pigments in a collection. I have 7 pigments personally that I have been using to create these looks, and the rest of them I actually set aside because they were so close. I was like, let me see if I actually like them before I open them all and contaminate them. And I think since they are still very close to the colors I already have, I'll probably just put them in future giveaways. But anyway, I did use 7 of the Glamierre pigments to create all of the looks you're going to see today. As I said, there's a 3 looks, 1 palette, and then at the end I'm going to go over my review of this collection and these neon pigments in general. With all that said, let's just go ahead and jump right into the tutorial.
This first look, I'm going to be using the Gerard Clean Canvas Eye Base. This is new from them, and I'm just applying that to my eyes, and I'm leaving it tacky. Taking that first pigment, Lemonade, I'm just going to use this, it's like a blending brush, but more dense, and I'm using that to place and pack it onto the inner 1/3 of my lid. And then I'm following that up with this shade Vitamin C, and putting that right into the center of my lid with a similar style brush, really focusing on placing and packing and patting it down before I kind of go and buff and blend. Next, taking the shade Tangerine, I'm placing that on the outer third, and once again packing it on where I want it, and then starting to very gently with the tip of the brush buff and blend it out. And then I'm just going to take all the different brushes that I used and go back over and just help to blend and diffuse everything together so there's no harsh lines. And then I'm just going to take that bigger but fluffy brush and just kind of buff into the crease. And then I'm taking my Vamp stamp and laying that down, and then taking this Hank & Henry liquid liner pen and just lining my eyes. Taking that Makeup Revolution concealer, I am putting that right below my lash line. With pigments, because they are such a dry formula, you really need something tacky for it to stick to, so that's why I'm doing that. And then I'm taking Limelight and applying that right on with a very flat, dense brush, so that, as you can see, I'm just pushing and placing it right onto that tacky concealer. The good thing about pigments is that if you get it on your face, you just have to brush it away and it doesn't stick to your face, so that's nice. Then I'm taking this Colourpop liner, I think in the shade Poppy, and I'm putting on my waterline, and then just putting a bit of mascara on my lower lashes. And then I'm taking that Give Me Go highlighter in White Noise and using that as my inner corner highlight and also my face highlight. It's a gorgeous, stunning highlighter, very beautiful as an inner corner highlight. And then I'm just finishing the whole look off with using this lip lacquer from Chic in the shade Blissful. And that is the completed look. This one was really easy and effortless, and it was one of the lighter kind of neon looks that I ever created, and I really enjoyed it. I know you can kind of see a little bit of what looks like creasing on my right eye, but that was actually more my fault. This was the first time I used the eye base from Gerard Cosmetics, and I had let it crease on that eyelid right before I went to pack on the pigment, and the pigment just kind of settled right into the crease and didn't like diffuse it at all. So that was entirely my mistake. Alright, for my second look, I'm taking the LORAC Behind the Scenes Eyeshadow Primer and putting that down first to help make sure these shadows last all day. And then I'm taking the Makeup Revolution Cut Crease Canvas in, it's the white shade, I think it's called Halo. And I am buffing that out. This is not my favorite white base, but I am very limited when it comes to white bases. And I wanted it to be white so that these shadows would be able to pop. So I'm going in with a Limelight first, and I am very gently and, as you can see, very delicately buffing and blending that into my crease. And then once I kind of figure out where I want to place it, as you saw, now I'm taking a little bit more on my brush and really focusing on diffusing and being careful that wherever I touch my brush down, that's where I want pigment to be, because since this base is tacky and these are pigments, it's going to grab onto whatever is tacky and stay there. So I started with a very little bit and went in very lightly and just slowly until I kind of got comfortable with it, and that's kind of how I built it up in the crease. And same story on my outer corner. I'm packing it right where I want it to be, and then using the very tip of the brush to very lightly blend and buff it out, just so there's nothing too harsh and it's very diffused. Next up, I'm just taking a little bit of that same concealer, Cut Crease Concealer, and I'm tapping that onto my lid. But because of these darn nails, I had to get a brush to get a little more precise. I wasn't wanting to do a very precise cut crease, but since I couldn't do it with my fingers, it kind of ended up being more precise than I meant it to. But anyway, just laying that down in preparations for the next shade that we're going to put on top. Taking the shade Lemonade, I am packing that right onto that base that I just set down. And as you can see, I am working one eye at a time. I find that with these pigments, you really need to make sure that your base is pretty tacky. Now, you don't want it dripping wet, but you definitely don't want your concealer or your base to dry too much because it really needs that stickiness, that wetness for these pigments to attach to. So that's why I decided to just do the one eye. That way the other side wouldn't dry while I was working on the one eye. So anyway, just going back in with that first shade, and I'm using that to just buff and blend into the two colors to make sure it's nice and seamless. And then with all of the fallout, I did go ahead and kind of give my face a little bit of a wash with my micellar water, and then I'm going on with the Vamp stamp and laying that down before lining my eyes with that NYX liquid liner, my favorite liquid liner to use. I'm just throwing on some mascara and then applying this highlighter called Psychedelic from Geek. And then going into that Colourpop gel liner in the shade Puppy, I'm putting that once again into my waterline. Once again, I'm taking that Halo Cut Crease canvas from Makeup Revolution and stamping that underneath so that the pigment has something to adhere to. And then I'm taking Tangerine and popping that right onto that base and just stamping it in. And then afterwards, very gently giving it just a little bit of a blend. And here I'm just wiping away any fallout. It's very easy. And then taking that highlighter for my face, I am wetting it and applying it as my inner corner highlight. And since it was so much more impactful when I wet it for my inner corner highlight, I decided to also wet it for my face highlighter and just put a little bit more on there. Then taking the Butter London lip oil, I'm applying that on, and that is the completed look. I felt like this eye look was really easy to do. I mean, it was only 3 colors, but still, I felt like it was very easy and effortless to get to, and I love the overall look. For my third and final look, I'm using the Milani eyeshadow primer and then also the Cut Crease canvas from Makeup Revolution as my base again, and I'm starting once again with the shade Lemonade. The yellows and greens obviously were my favorite to work with, so I incorporated them in like all the looks. But anyway, I'm taking a very pointed brush and blending this into my crease. As you can see, you have to be a little careful not to like put the pigment too heavily in one spot, but just start small and take your time with it and just do a lot of blending. And then once I like that, I'm taking that pigment Tangerine and putting that in my crease, but at the very center. And then lastly, taking Flamingo, and I'm putting that on the outer corner. Again, using very dome brushes so I can use the sides of it to kind of lay it down and then the tip of it to blend it in. Taking that pigment Bora Bora, I am now packing that onto my outer corner, and then once I like where I've placed it, I'm taking the very tip of that brush with no additional product on it and using that to buff and blend very gently up into the pink just to get a very soft purple. And then taking the eye stamp from Ulta Beauty, I put some more of that Cut Crease canvas on and placed it down, and it went way too high for my preferences. So I'm just taking a clean liner brush, and I honestly just wiped the concealer or the Cut Crease canvas off before it fully set, and then just tapped a bit more of the pigment on top, and I felt like it covered and kind of corrected that very easily. But anyway, just going and carving it out how I like it, and then tapping it out so it's not too sticky, but making sure it's a very smooth base. Going in with Limelight and putting that all over that cut crease and just, as you can see, placing it on, really patting it on, not really doing any blending, just making sure that I pack it on evenly. And then once I like where I place it, I'm taking that brush that I used with the blue shade, not with any additional pigment, and just trying to use that to very lightly buff and diffuse that edge there, just to make the line between all the colors not so harsh. And then taking my Vamp stamp, per usual, I'm putting on my wings and then lining it with some liquid liner. I needed to test out this new magnetic liner, so that's why I'm using the Kiss one, and then I'm going to use the Moxie lashes on top of that. But just to add a little bit of fun to this look, because, you know, all these colors aren't fun enough, I guess, I'm taking this NYX Glitter Goals in Diamond Dust, and I'm using that to follow the line of my half-cut crease. Then I'm just applying some mascara, and this day I had just blended out my concealer, so I decided to see if it would stick to that. And as you can see, it's stuck, but you can definitely tell there's a tonal difference. So it definitely works best with putting concealer very concentrated there and making sure it's very tacky, whereas this had set a while. But anyway, it did the job, and then I'm taking this pure highlighter in Afterglow, and I'm using that as my inner corner highlight. I think this is a Smashbox gel liner in just a black shade. It's very dried out, and I'm putting some mascara for my bottom lashes. And then I'm taking this Avon liquid lipstick in Ambitious, and that is the final look. I don't think I've mentioned it, but the brighter shades like the pinks, the reds, and the purples definitely will stain your eyelid. I didn't really notice it for the brighter greens and yellows and oranges, but just something to throw out there that it does stain a little bit, nothing crazy. But yeah, that is the third and final look. This one was, I think, my favorite one. They're all very pretty and I really enjoyed all of them, but this one is just so fun and colorful. I really loved how it turned out and it was a lot of fun to wear.
Okay, so there you go. Those are the 3 looks I created. I did want to also say that I did use these in a couple different looks. I'll go ahead and put them here on the screen as I talk about them, but in these looks, I really use them as accent pieces. So instead of using exclusively Glamierre neon pigments, I used other shadows from other palettes and then used the Glamierre pigment, maybe 1 or 2, as a pop of neon-ness. So that's kind of how I used it a lot in the beginning, just kind of getting familiar with the formula. And then to do this video, I really wanted to focus on what kind of looks I could create if I just use these pigments and how well they blend, how well they pack on, how well they mesh with each other, that kind of thing. And as you heard, you know, they're very tricky to work with, and I will definitely be upfront and say that these neon pigments are very tricky to work with, and I would not recommend you try to hold all of them. I would not recommend these for a beginner. They're very tricky, honestly. Maybe this is how pigments always are, or maybe it's because they're not only pigments but they're also neon. They're very difficult to blend and mesh into each other, which I felt like was the biggest learning curve with these neon pigments. But once I kind of figured out how to work it, and if I wanted to blend, I really made sure I start with a little product and worked in. And I think the biggest tip I could give anyone is to use more precise brushes and really focus the colors. Like this look that I have today is my favorite look that I've created. It was the easiest to blend because I really focused on only blending and placing the color where I wanted it. And once I had all the shades where I wanted it, then I kind of went in and worked on kind of blending in and meshing them together. And also another tip is never do the darkest color first, because whatever pigment you place down first, it really grips and adheres to your base. And then if you try to put another pigment on top, it's just going on top of a pigment, so it's going on top of powder and it doesn't have anything to stick to, and it's very difficult to get to stick. So though I think the first time I used it, I put like this green down first and then I tried to blend this yellow on top of it. It would not work, but when I swapped it for when I did the other, I swapped it and did this first and then put this on top. It was a lot easier to get these two to mesh and create more of a seamless blend. Oh yes, and speaking of base, you need a base. Today I used a white base. It's not my favorite white base. I am on the hunt for a good white base, but I feel like in general these colors pop the best with a white base, but you need some type of base. Even if I just use my regular eyeshadow base, I use a concealer, or even using just this Gerard Cosmetics Clear Cut Canvas, it's more of my skin tone. You need a base to really help these stick to it. One other tip that I really had when you're working with these neon pigments is to tap it in, and then I would knock it off really well on the sides, and then after that I would actually take the top of the cover of the neon pigment and kind of swirl it in there to get all of the pigment dispensed nicely into the brush, so it's not just like in one spot. And then I would tap it off once more and then start, and that really helped to not just like get too much in one spot. But overall these are really nice. They're not anything I would say that you can ever get longevity with. I don't know if it's because these are such dry colors or because they're such vibrant colors. Something about it, by the end of a long day I have a lot of crease, not really creasing, but just a lot of fading and slight patchiness. It's nothing crazy like, you know, when you have a really bad eyeshadow and kind of fades and creases on you. But at the end of the day, I'll get up into my mirror and I can see on the center of my eyes where I've been, you know, opening and closing. I have a hooded eye. It does it the most on that side. You can kind of see my skin through it, and it's just a little cracky looking and not as smooth and gorgeous as it was at the beginning of the day. Now with that said, if you're someone who does makeup on camera, if you have a YouTube channel, I feel like these are going to be awesome because they're so bright and neon, you really can't see the texture. So some pros and cons there, but overall, I really did like this collection. I really do enjoy these neon pigments for them being so tricky with being not only loose pigments, which I'm very uncomfortable with, but also neon shadows. I thought they were relatively easy to work with and blend once I figured out the best way to get it onto my brush and be able to disperse it evenly into my brush. Today's eye look had, what, 6, 7 colors? And it was relatively easy to work with, and I felt like I was really happy with the final look that I got. So definitely surprised me with how much I liked it. Am I going to reach for these all the time? Am I going to create looks exclusively using Glamierre pigments? I don't think I am. I feel like, you know, this is just too much for me personally. Unless I'm doing, you know, something on YouTube or I want to do a video and really have fun makeup. I feel like using all these neon pigments on your eyes is a little like, whoa, in person. So for me personally, I can't really see myself reaching for these pigments to create an entire look, but I can totally see myself going for these pigments when I want something really to pop on my lid. I think that is a fun way to do it, and I've created several looks, as you guys saw. 2 of them I think are videos, so I'll have those linked down below. But yeah, I think that's going to be the most common way that I reach for these to incorporate them into eye looks, because it's just so fun and vibrant, especially when you have kind of normal eyeshadows everywhere else and then you put a neon pigment. It really does stand out and just like, well, bam, in person it is gorgeous. And I feel like it would also be fun to do a neon pigment and then apply a more sheer type of glitter on top of that so that there's sparkle to it, but then the neonness still comes through. But yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts when it comes to these Glamierre neon pigments. They're definitely not for the faint of heart. This is when you want to get creative, do something different, do something fun. You maybe have a fun event too. So yeah, anyway, overall, that is my review of these Glamierre neon pigments. Tons of fun. I would also, another thing, I feel like I'm just kind of a little scatterbrained here at the end, but another way I want to try to use these is to do a mixing medium and then to do a liquid liner, like wing out your liner. That could be a lot of fun too. But yeah, overall, I just feel like it depends on who you are as a person. If you like to have fun, you're gonna love these, and I highly recommend Glamierre's neon pigments. If you're someone who doesn't like to, you know, play with your makeup, you want something just that you can put on, go out of the house, don't have to worry about it, you enjoy your neutrals, you're not gonna like this, but I feel like you didn't have to watch this review to know that. But anyway, if you have been curious about neon pigments, that's why I wanted to put this review and the 3 Looks 1 collection together, because these neon pigments are fantastic. Yes, they have their quirks. Yes, they have their little nuances that you have to be careful about when applying them. And yes, they don't last that long, but I feel like you're not really putting neon pigments to go to a 12-hour work day. I mean, maybe you are, but for me personally, I just like it to last a couple hours for a video, just to have fun, whatnot. So yeah, those are my thoughts. That is my review of the Glamierre neon pigments. I hope you guys found this video helpful and informative. Let me know down below your thoughts on neon pigments. Are you at all curious? Do you just like stay far away from me? I don't want that. Let me know what you guys think of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and above all, I hope you guys found it helpful and informative if you were curious about neon pigments, because for me personally, when I was looking into neon pigments, I feel like I saw a lot of first impression videos, but not a lot of like, you know, in-depth reviews and explaining how to work with them. So that's the main reason I wanted to make this video. So I hope I was able to achieve my goal of being informative and helpful for you guys on how to work with neon pigments. But anyway, thank you guys so very much for watching. If you did enjoy it and found it helpful, enjoyable, whatever, please hit the thumbs up button as you go out. It really does help me in the whole YouTube algorithm, and I really do appreciate it. But yeah, with that said, I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.